keep in mind Renice is middle school. So what you've heard from is you've heard from the high school, Hannah's perspective, you've heard from Tony, and I want you all, by the way, to stay in your helper chairs. And now Renice with middle school.
Yeah, that's the first thing I was going to say. Middle school, I call it the middle child syndrome, because they're not in elementary school, they're not in high school, they're not babies, but they look like they're adults. The boys' voices start to change, the girls start to develop, so they don't know if they want to be a child or an adult. They're preteens. I'm a teenager now, Miss Sermons. So I go through all these physical emotions, let alone anything else. And Tony, I like that meter. Can I get one of those? Where do you get those from? I just stand up in front of my class and go like this. They know, turn the volume down. Turn it down, it's getting too loud. And I think for me, this is fresh. This just happened. That's why I want to share this. We just finished PSSA. So I was kind after testing because I know their brains were working really hard. So we had like a little nice, calm activity. Well, PSSAs are over. And they come in the room, what are we doing today? Work. Why do we have to work? Because you're at school and this is what we're doing. We have to get back on track. So I had this great lesson plan. This is going to go well. Now, this is everything we went over before PSSA. This is the day after the last day of PSSA. I'm ready, but they're not. So we're doing this lesson, and nobody remembered one concept we went over. They're looking at me like I was speaking a foreign language. They had no clue what I was talking about. So this is when, as a teacher, you question yourself, well, what is wrong with me? What am I doing wrong? So I said, okay, forget it. So I had to tell them, I messed up. I forgot. Maybe you didn't remember, so we'll start over. So I had to reteach what I had already taught. Now, I could have handled that in two ways. I could have been upset with them, annoyed. I wasn't sad, but I didn't allow them to share. I said, I know you used your brain so much for PSSA. You forgot this, but you're so smart, you'll remember. So I had to change my lesson and go back and reteach something I already taught. And then it helped them to remember, I remember. But as a teacher, you have to be humble. And you have to be willing to say, okay, I didn't plan that too well. But be able to monitor and adjust on the spot. Because if you stand up there with your face looking like, they'll get you, especially in middle school. You have to plan, and plan. You have to have a plan A, B, through Z. So they know, I'm done. My one class, they work really quick. I said, you don't get a prize for being done first. And they know there's always a next assignment. So they figured that out. If we rush, we just get more work. And so that's just for me. I think that's the best thing with middle school is that you have to be prepared. You have to have a plan because they are good at seeking you out when you're not on your feet and when you're not ready and when you're not prepared, they will get you. So you have to be ready. But the main thing I wanted to say is they accept when they realize that you're human and you make mistakes. Because I tell them I'm very smart, but I don't know everything, and I make mistakes. And I'll say I apologize. And I think they appreciate that when you are willing to say, well, I messed up with that, or could you forgive me for that? And then they'll say, oh, that's okay. Everybody makes mistakes. And I'll let them know, but don't make them too often.
You turn that off. What you're hearing, I think also is teachers being willing, in fact, doing it deliberately to humanize themselves and have students understand that they make mistakes as well. And I think that speaks to the quality of the teachers we have here. We've also heard how they individualize what they're doing with students. Now we want to dig deeper, and I'm going to push for specificity now. And the question is, I want you to think of a student that showed dramatic gains over this year, you can do any year. And as you think about that student, now we're looking for specifics, what were 2 to 3 things you did to which you attribute the gains that the student made? 2 to 3 things you did that you would put your life on, that student responded to and did well and made up the difference in what that student needed to know.
So this is one of those things that teachers love to do, is they love to talk about their students. And so I'm going to tell a story. I like telling stories. I'm a history teacher. I tell stories. And so this year was a slightly chaotic year beginning to the year, and some of the enrollment numbers were changed at Alderdice at the beginning of the year. And so I went from having two sections of one class, and that class got collapsed into one, and inheriting another class from another colleague because she had an overload of classes. So we're just trying to even things out. And so I got her students. It's an 11th grade general education U.S. history class. And of course, when kids move, they hate it. And you're the reason they moved. So I have a hostile audience of 30 kids to deal with for this semester. And it was not a fun transition for anybody. I'm not gonna say, oh, it was great, you know, we talked about it. No. It was rough. I mean, it was really rough. And there was one student in particular who really resented it the most. She did not like being moved from Ms. A's class to Mr. S's class. You know, we all have reputations in the school, and I'm sure I came with the reputation of being the tough teacher. I'm not that tough, really. But that's fine. I don't mind having that rep. I'm cool. We'll just call her Sherry, just so I don't want to use her real name. And she resented like you would not believe. She would sit there defiantly, not doing anything, putting her head down, and she failed the first quarter. I mean, flat out failed. She refused to do anything, no matter what I did, go to counseling, whatever, would not work for me. You know, she wanted to go back to Ms. A's class, and this was going to be her way of getting there. And it was about trying to build that relationship with her that it took a while. You know, finally she sort of woke up and said, what can I do to get my grade up? I'm like, let's start by doing the work. That would be a good, that's the simple solution, right? Yeah. Let me think about this for a second. And so she does, slowly, but it's not full steam. And so it's about helping her build her confidence in the fact that she can do this work. In the 11th grade U.S. history class, we use documents. I mean, serious documents with language that the kids have not seen before. And so part of my challenge was building the scaffolding necessary for her to be successful. Where is she in those abilities to read a document written by Henry Stimson, the former Secretary of War for Harry Truman and FDR on the atomic bomb project, right? So what do I need to do to get her to that level of understanding that document? Not on a superficial manner, but understanding what Stimson was saying. So we start making progress. I'll cut to make a short story long. You know, this semester, she does all her homework. She has a solidly great grade. She participates in class. You know, every now and then she still puts the earbuds in. She still, you know, she finishes her work. She doesn't want to talk to anybody. She puts her head down. I'll go over to her and I'll say, Jerry, what do you think of this question? And she just looks at me at this point and goes, Mr. S, you know I know the answer. I'm like, okay. You want me to say it? Yeah, that would be nice. Right? So we have a relationship now that with my recognizing where she was, letting her get her anger out, trying to work with her on a regular basis. I mean, I never just sort of said, all right, that's fine, repeat 11th grade next year. That's not my job. So my job is to work with you and build those relationships. You know, and as Dr. Lane said earlier, I don't know if Jerry wants to go to college or she just wants to go get a career when she's done with high school. But I do know that I've made a connection with a kid who, and I might not see that for another few years, who ultimately one day I will run into on the streets of Pittsburgh. I live in this city, and you know, I hope that we remember each other at that time. And those are the moments I wait for, when those kids are out of school for 3 or 4 years.